Everything you feared was hidden in plain sight is now cracking open, revealing a deeper spiritual battle than you ever imagined. The most shocking part? You unintentionally confronted someone who believed they held absolute power, someone manipulating souls for selfish gain, and your bold stand has triggered a mass exodus. If you're feeling that surge of revelation in your spirit, make a firm decision to keep watching for the next 18 minutes. God and the universe take note of your commitment. Hit the like button, subscribe, and type 77 as a declaration that you're wide open to receive an immediate breakthrough. Then the moment you feel the resonance of truth within you, leave another comment. Ready for what's next? And watch as this message begins a rapid chain reaction that brings tangible change and ushers in a whole new season of transformation. Chapter 1. You sensed something was gravely amiss. You've likely felt it for a long time, that gnawing unease in the pit of your stomach whenever you encountered certain individuals or groups. It wasn't just mild discomfort, it was an alarm resonating deep in your spirit, screaming that something was fundamentally off. You might have seen their outward smiles, heard their lofty promises, but beneath the polished facade was a disturbing undercurrent you couldn't quite articulate. You're not imagining things. You sense their manipulative presence, a twisted power structure designed to bind unsuspecting souls rather than set them free. Your mind flickers back to moments that made your skin crawl, a forced kindness that rang hollow or subtle jabs disguised as spiritual truth. Perhaps you felt singled out or even ganged up on when you questioned the status quo. At times, you shrugged off your suspicions, chalking them up to paranoia or a misunderstanding. But no matter how often you tried to ignore that inner voice, it kept tugging at you, refusing to let you simply blend in with the crowd. That stubborn sense of unease was your first clue that God had marked you with heightened discernment. In this labyrinth of hidden motives, you became the uninvited threat to a carefully maintained illusion. Cult leaders, or anyone operating under the guise of absolute authority, thrive on uniform compliance, on making every person in their orbit an echo rather than a voice. Yet your presence alone disrupted the harmony of control. Even your silence was a silent rebellion. They might have eyed you with suspicion, wondering why you refused to bow, though you never directly challenged them at first. Paradoxically, it was your genuine pursuit of truth that caused an unspoken rift between you and the system designed to stifle questions. What you didn't realize was that your quiet vigilance was far more disconcerting to them than outright confrontation. You, as a chosen one, have a spiritual frequency that resonates higher than most. You might see it as simply being cautious or curious, but in truth, your spirit was already peeling back the layers of deception. This internal alarm wasn't just for your protection. It was divine intervention to ensure that others could witness how easily a false foundation crumbles when exposed to genuine light. You carried a sense of compassion for those entangled in the system, but compassion didn't translate into blind compliance. Compassion in your case was laced with truth. That truth was the subtle sword dividing illusion from authenticity. Whenever you found yourself in gatherings or conversations with this so-called leader, you spoke from the heart, sometimes not even realizing how your words were gently undermining their control. It was as if you were pulling on a single thread in a tapestry of lies, unraveling it stitch by stitch. Looking back, you might recall a moment, a short conversation, an offhand comment, or an honest question, when you caught the leader off guard. You saw a flicker of panic in their eyes, a crack in their carefully orchestrated persona. Little did you know that was the beginning of the end for their reign. Members once mesmerized by the leader's facade began to question. Whispers of doubt spread like wildfire. Even those who once defended the leader with zeal started to notice inconsistencies in the teachings or behavior that didn't match the leader's lofty words. This is the pivotal juncture in your story, where the uneasy feeling in your gut proved to be the compass pointing you to truth. You sensed something was gravely amiss, and that sense was validated in ways far beyond your initial guesses. This chapter in your journey isn't just about unveiling deception, it's a testament to your innate power as a chosen one. When you tune into that God-given discernment, you become a catalyst for setting others free, sometimes without even trying. So hold on to that memory of your first alarm bells. Let it remind you that your instincts are more accurate than you dare to believe. The next time you feel the deep internal nudge that something isn't right, remember how quickly illusions crumble in the face of genuine insight. Your presence alone disturbed the comfortable patterns of manipulation. There's a reason you were placed in that situation, and it's directly tied to your purpose as a torchbearer of truth. What was once a quiet sense of alarm is now confirmed. You were right to be suspicious, and your vigilance is about to propel you into a new realm of authority and clarity. Chapter 2. Your unassuming authority shook their foundation. Your mind keeps replaying how it all unraveled. Yet one detail stands out. You never intended to bring down anyone or anything. You simply followed your instincts, asked a few probing questions, maybe even offered genuine feedback. But in a culture, whether overtly cultish or subtly controlling, any form of authenticity is seen as a threat. It was your unassuming authority, the quiet conviction you carried, that rattled the leader's carefully constructed facade more than any organized rebellion ever could. Looking back, it's almost surreal how your benign observations triggered such a ripple effect. One minute people were bowing in deference to this so-called leader. The next they were questioning everything, including why they were part of this group in the first place. It happened faster than you expected. As though a subtle push from God set the dominoes in motion, the leader, once so confident and unchallenged, grew increasingly flustered whenever you showed up or spoke up. God moves in mysterious ways, often selecting the most unassuming individuals to topple structures built on deception. You were never one to seek the spotlight, nor did you ever claim to have all the answers. Yet your authenticity cast a radiant light on every crack and flaw in the system. It's like you walked into a room full of illusions, and your very presence refracted the shadows, revealing them for what they really were: hollow shells of control. Consider the spiritual principle at play here. Darkness thrives where it's unquestioned. The moment you start shining genuine light, often through simple honesty, empathy, and insight, darkness has nowhere to hide. This principle has been demonstrated throughout history and scripture, from biblical figures who expose corrupt kings to modern-day whistleblowers who topple corporate corruption. In your case, the power was never in your loudness. It was in your steadfast refusal to be swayed by false narratives. You may find yourself wrestling with guilt or confusion. Did you overstep by raising those questions or challenging the leader's teachings? But pay attention to how members of that group have begun to flee in your wake, looking for alternatives, some even reaching out to you for advice. When deception collapses, truth-hungry souls seek genuineness, and they sense that authenticity in you. They witnessed how your calm, unvarnished perspective proved more compelling than any rehearsed sermon or charismatic show. This unraveling might come with emotional fallout. Perhaps you're worried about backlash or the well-being of those who remain entangled. You might feel a tinge of regret about inadvertently causing upheaval. That's natural. Chosen ones often carry a heart for others, even those entrenched in harmful systems. But remember, God orchestrated your presence in their midst for a reason. Exposing false leadership isn't a malevolent act. It's a rescue mission for souls who've been manipulated into submission. The magnitude of what happened can be overwhelming. You were just living your life, armed only with your convictions, but ended up stirring a tidal wave of truth. Embrace that. Your authenticity is both a gift and a responsibility. People who escape the leader's grip might seek you out for guidance or reassurance. Don't be afraid to extend a hand, but also recognize that your role is to point them back to God, not to replace one form of dependence with another. The last thing you want is to become a reluctant leader who ends up creating a new hierarchy. Instead, aim to empower others to find their own connection with the divine. Think of yourself as a beacon. You never asked to be one, but God lit your flame nonetheless. Your quiet radiance exposed an entire structure of manipulation, proving that no matter how carefully orchestrated, a lie cannot stand when faced with unwavering truth. You shook their foundation, not by aggression or cunning, but by unwavering authenticity. In that act, you reclaimed a piece of your own identity too. How many times have you doubted your worth or wondered if your voice mattered? Let this be a living testament that yes, it matters immensely. If your words, spoken or unspoken, could cause people to question years of conditioning, then your potential to reshape realities is far greater than you think. It's not an overstatement to say that what you did, whether consciously or not, Isrania has saved lives. Spiritual manipulation can be just as lethal as any physical threat, suffocating the human spirit until it no longer recognizes its inherent freedom. By throwing a wrench in the system, you opened a path for genuine liberation. As you move forward, hold fast to the lessons you've learned. Recognize that God often uses the unsuspecting hero, the one who steps in with no hidden agenda, to catalyze massive change. That's you. Let this knowledge anchor you, especially when doubt creeps back in or you're tempted to minimize your impact. The structures of deception can't stand against a single flicker of real light, and you, chosen one, have become that flicker, steady, illuminating, and unstoppable. Chapter 3. You're tearing down idols with bold simplicity. You might wonder why such a dramatic upheaval followed your seemingly ordinary actions. After all, you didn't mount a crusade or confront the so-called leader in front of a crowd. You spoke truth in a measured, sincere way, enough to crack the veneer of authority they'd cultivated. That's the essence of what chosen ones do. They tear down idols, not through force or arrogance, but with a holy boldness that defies manufactured reverence. Idols can take many forms. Some are literal statues or symbols, but often they manifest as personalities. A cult of celebrity, a charismatic figure who claims to hold keys to spiritual or emotional salvation. In the situation you found yourself in, the leader had become an idol to followers who believed every word as gospel. He or she thrived on adoration, on being seen as infallible. But even the most elaborate facade can't withstand an encounter with genuine truth. In your case, that truth came wrapped in humility, a stark contrast to the cultivated grandiosity of the leader. God has a history of using ordinary individuals to dismantle false gods. Think of biblical accounts where shepherds became kings, or where the marginalized voices expose corruption. You stand in that lineage, whether you realize it or not. Your willingness to question, your refusal to be mesmerized by a human persona, set off a domino effect that's liberating countless souls. And the key? You never tried to compete with the leader's ego. Instead, you remained focused on authenticity, guided by a quiet conviction that no man or woman should ever occupy the throne that belongs to God alone. This bold simplicity can feel disorienting, especially when you observe the magnitude of its impact. People have spent years enthralled by that leader's rhetoric, investing time, money, and emotional energy. It might baffle you how all it took was a few sincere questions or heartfelt statements to loosen the leader's grip on them, but that's precisely the power of truth. It doesn't need fanfare or force. Truth resonates with a frequency that awakens dormant minds, calling them to step out of the shadows of manipulation and into the light of personal and spiritual freedom. Still, stepping into the role of an idol breaker isn't always comfortable. The leader you exposed, along with any remaining loyalists, might lash out. You could become a target for smears or accusations. This backlash is often how deceptive structures defend themselves, by vilifying the person who exposed their weaknesses. But remember, you are not a lone soldier. You have the backing of divine authority. The same power that guided your words in that crucial moment continues to shield you from harm. Doubt and fear may whisper lies, but those voices crumble before unwavering faith. In the wake of your actions, it's not uncommon for the exodus of members to accelerate. Each person who leaves does so carrying a spark of revelation they caught from you. That spark can grow into a flame of self-discovery and spiritual renewal, but it can also be fragile, especially in the early stages. That's where your compassion and integrity come into play. Offer a listening ear if they reach out. Point them toward healthy resources, but resist the urge to become a replacement savior. Your role isn't to establish a new hierarchy, it's to affirm that they already possess the God-given ability to discern truth. For a moment, reflect on your own transformation. Tearing down idols in others' lives often triggers a parallel process within your own soul. What illusions have you unwittingly carried? What limiting beliefs might still hold you back from fully embracing your calling? As you help others see through deception, you'll find that certain layers of your own psyche peel away, revealing an even more powerful, more authentic version of yourself. It's a win-win in the spiritual sense. You liberate others, and in doing so, deepen your own freedom. The immediate promise here is that God is propelling you into a deeper dimension of influence. You didn't ask for it. It's a byproduct of your courageous authenticity. The emotional pain points, fear of confrontation, uncertainty about how you'll be perceived, are being transformed into pillars of strength and clarity. This shift is happening swiftly, like a wave you can either ride or resist. Trust that the wave is from the divine hand that orchestrated these events in the first place. No idol can stand before a heart fully aligned with truth. That's the lesson you're imparting just by existing in your God-given authenticity. Every time you speak up, or even choose to remain silent in strategic moments, you assert that leadership should come from humility and service, not dominance and manipulation. You've torn down an idol in one circle, and that act is reverberating in realms you can't even see. Who knows how many other idol factories might collapse because you set this precedent? So rest in the knowledge that your bold simplicity is working in ways beyond your imagination. The cult-like structure is crumbling. The leader's hold is losing its grip on people's minds. In the center of that collapse stands you, a chosen one, shining with the uncomplicated brilliance of a soul that cannot be duped by counterfeit glory. The path ahead might not be paved with roses, but it's illuminated by a purpose that no cult leader or manipulative figure can ever extinguish. Chapter 4. You stand at the crossroads of massive influence. You may not have planned for this, but you're finding yourself at a pivotal junction where your influence is poised to expand dramatically. It's as though a veil lifted, not only for those who were misled by a toxic leader, but also for you. Suddenly you realize the weight of your words, how they carry the power to break chains that have held people captive for years. This isn't about ego or basking in praise. It's about stepping into a role you never expected but can no longer deny. Here's the immediate promise. The same spiritual insight that helped you see through the cult-like deception is now propelling you forward into opportunities you might have never dared to dream about. You sense it, don't you? That stirring in your spirit, an almost electric anticipation of what's next. God often uses these defining moments where you dismantle a lie to position you for greater responsibilities. What might initially feel overwhelming is actually a clear sign that you're ready to impact more lives than you ever thought possible. But influence is a two-edged sword. Handle it with integrity, and it can set souls free, galvanize communities, and usher in real healing. Mishandle it, and you risk replicating the same manipulative structures you fought to expose. That's why it's crucial to keep your heart aligned with God's intentions. If you find yourself grappling with arrogance or the aura of admiration, pull back and refocus on the original mission, to shine truth so brightly that no deception can stand. Your new role might involve sharing your story, how one moment of candid authenticity cracked open a fortress of lies. Or perhaps you'll be called to mentor those emerging from that toxic circle, helping them rebuild their sense of self and trust. Some will look to you as a beacon, clinging to every word as they piece together a life free from the cult leader's manipulations. This is both a privilege and a weighty responsibility. Don't shy away from it, but approach it with the reverence it deserves. Nothing about this is accidental. You might recall earlier life events, smaller moments where you stood for truth without even realizing how significant it was. Each instance was a rehearsal for this very moment. God has been equipping you in ways you didn't even notice, shaping your empathy, sharpening your discernment, and teaching you how to communicate truth in love. Now all those lessons converge, pointing to the undeniable reality that you're meant for more than just a quiet life on the sidelines. The people who are fleeing that cult-like environment aren't just searching for a new system. They're looking for genuine connection and a framework that respects their autonomy. When they turn to you, they're doing so because they sense something real and uncorrupted in your spirit. Their trust might be fragile, shattered by years of manipulation, so handle it with gentleness and patience. Reaffirm their innate worth rather than positioning yourself as an ultimate authority. The difference between positive influence and cultish control lies in how you use the trust people extend to you. Meanwhile, prepare yourself for potential backlash. The leader who once held sway won't simply vanish without a fight. There may be attempts to discredit you or pull you into online arguments or public confrontations. Remember, your power isn't in loud rebuttals or a flurry of accusations. You wield a subtler, more potent weapon: calm, unwavering truth. Respond with measured grace, if you respond at all, and let the fruit of your life speak louder than any smear campaign. Those who are truly seeking clarity will recognize which side stands in authenticity. In the swirl of new responsibility and shifting alliances, don't lose sight of your own spiritual health. Increased influence can drain your energy if you're not intentional about refilling your own cup. Seek God's presence more fervently than ever. Surround yourself with people who keep you anchored. Individuals unafraid to challenge you if they see pride creeping in. Yes, you've dismantled deception, but you're also human. None of us are immune to stumbling if we forget to ground ourselves in humility and faith. Yet there's a deeper thread weaving through this unfolding story: your own emotional and spiritual evolution. In stepping into this expanded realm of influence, you may find yourself revisiting buried insecurities or facing questions you thought you'd already answered. That's not a sign of regression. It's the natural growth spurt that comes whenever we accept a bigger mission. Each anxiety or moment of self-doubt is an invitation to reaffirm your foundation in God's unwavering truth, to remember that you're an instrument of grace rather than its originator. Let that knowledge free you from the burden of having to be perfect. Instead, focus on being transparent, willing to acknowledge your limitations, even as you explore new possibilities. This honesty humanizes your influence, reminding people they have permission to question, to fail, and to rise again. In that space, real connection flourishes. It's where you cultivate trust that surpasses fear, building a community not bound by blind allegiance, but bonded by shared vulnerability. Ultimately, your willingness to navigate your own uncertainties with humility will not diminish your leadership. It will deepen it, demonstrating that true authority is rooted in integrity rather than appearances. Such transparency ensures your influence remains healthy and truly transformative. Your new influence serves a greater narrative than just your personal journey. Each life you touch will, in turn, touch others. It's a ripple effect that can cascade across families, communities, and even generations. This is how deep, lasting revival starts. Not with one loud explosion, but with countless sparks lighting up hidden corners. You've sparked something significant already, but the flame will grow if you nurture it with authenticity, compassion, and a relentless devotion to the truth. Take a moment to acknowledge how far you've come. What began as a feeling of moral discomfort blossomed into a decisive act that toppled a false leadership. Now you're standing at the crossroads of massive influence, equipped with the wisdom and grace you never consciously asked for, but desperately needed. Embrace it. Step forward with the boldness of someone who knows God has paved the way. The shifts happening now are not random. They are part of a carefully orchestrated plan that you're privileged to participate in. Chapter 5. You are liberating souls, bound by deceit. Sometimes it strikes you like lightning. The awareness that your actions, and even your very presence, can free people from prisons they never realized held them captive. By confronting a system built on control, you did more than unmask one leader's manipulations. You unlocked the door for countless souls who had been silently craving a way out. Imagine it as freeing prisoners, not with a dramatic parade or trumpet blast, but through the steady, unassailable power of truth. You may question what authorizes you to destabilize something so deeply rooted in people's hearts and minds. The explanation lies in your identity as a chosen one. God grants a unique authority to those who undertake his work on behalf of the oppressed. It's not about your perfection or intellect. It's about your readiness to stand in a breach others avoid. You spotted a lie that many overlooked or feared to confront, and you declared a truth potent enough to fracture the lie's core. Of course, real-world liberation is messy. Those exiting that manipulative environment might wrestle with confusion, rage, or a profound sense of betrayal. Their entire identity may have been entangled with the leader's message or the group's restrictive doctrines. Suddenly, they're faced with a vast unknown, life without the cult structure and without the leader's commanding voice guiding their every action. This abrupt shift is disorienting, often causing them to cling to you, the one who first illuminated their darkness. Yet your calling isn't to become the new figure of authority they rely on unconditionally. Think of yourself as a midwife of freedom, not a dictator of it. Do nudge them gently towards self-reliance and honest faith exploration, encouraging the same kind of questioning that led you to challenge the status quo in the first place. That mindset leaves room for their own spiritual discoveries and ensures they remain sovereign over their journey. Never underestimate the depth of pain within some of these individuals. Manipulation is fundamentally abusive. It seizes a person's agency and distorts their ability to trust their inner compass. Expect some to vacillate between exuberance at newfound liberty and a creeping fear that they've made a grievous error in abandoning the familiar. They were taught to believe the leader held ultimate truth. Letting go of that illusion can be like losing a spiritual parent or demolishing an ideological home. Your empathy is a lifeline. You understand the tension between trusting yourself and bowing to external pressures. Offer that empathy to reassure them. Healing is real, and it grows in the radiant presence of truth. As these souls step into freedom, a ripple will radiate through their wider communities. Family members, friends, and even casual acquaintances will see these individuals reclaim their sense of self. Some will celebrate their bravery. Others may respond with confusion or hostility. Such mixed reactions add another emotional layer for the newly liberated to navigate. Your steady support can become a beacon in this uncertain process. Every instance of clarity, every time they establish a boundary or assert their own voice, affirms that truth is triumphing over oppression. The spiritual significance here is immeasurable. God cares profoundly for those who've been deceived, manipulated, or spiritually abused. History is full of moments where he raised up voices to expose abuses of power, from prophetic figures in biblical accounts to modern truth-tellers. Right now, that prophetic mantle rests on you. You might feel unready or unworthy, but remember, God doesn't always select the overtly qualified. He refines those he has chosen, often through the unexpected, like stepping into a gathering that felt off and daring to name its fraud. This liberation mission also transforms you from the inside out. Each person who embraces freedom through your influence is a reflection of your higher calling, a testament to the powerful partnership between your courage and God's guidance. You grow more confident in your own inner voice and more willing to speak truth, even if your hands tremble. Each testimony of deliverance adds to a symphony celebrating the resilient human spirit, especially when it aligns with God's love and justice. In the aftermath of this collective exodus, you might feel driven to shoulder everyone's burdens. While the desire to protect is natural, doing so can harm both you and them. Direct them towards sustainable healing methods, therapists trained in spiritual abuse, supportive communities that promote independent thinking, and healthy spiritual practices that nurture their souls without controlling them. Your role is that of an intercessor, not a taskmaster. You can pray for them and stand in the gap without dictating every move. Acknowledging each individual's unique route to wholeness honors their inherent dignity and God-given agency. Realize, too, that what's unfolding transcends you. You're a channel for liberation, but the wellspring is divine. By agreeing to this mission, you align yourself with a timeless narrative that has always championed justice over oppression, transparency over deception, and liberty over bondage. Allow that truth to reverberate in your spirit. You aren't alone in this responsibility. Countless people before you have answered similar calls, and many more will emerge, each lending their light to a world too frequently shrouded in spiritual darkness. To be effective in this role, you may need to delve deeper into your own soul work. The demands of leadership, especially in the wake of a collapsed spiritual structure, can be immense. You may discover lingering doubts, unresolved wounds, or moments where you question your capacity to offer guidance. Rather than seeing these as failures, view them as invitations to grow. Let your time in prayer or reflection be a space where God speaks life into those doubts, transforming them into fresh testimonies of faith. If you ignore your own emotional or spiritual needs, you risk burning out or inadvertently becoming a new source of control instead of freedom. Your willingness to be teachable also sets an example for those you're helping. When they see you acknowledge your vulnerabilities, recalibrate your course, or seek wise counsel, they learn that true spirituality isn't about hiding behind a facade of perfection. It's about humbly journeying forward with God, trusting He'll illuminate the path one step at a time. In this sense, your ongoing growth is part of their healing, demonstrating that life after manipulation is a fluid dance of progress, reflection, and grace. At times, you might confront serious opposition from those loyal to the fallen leader. They may hurl accusations or spread rumors to defend what they cannot bear to see dismantled. You might feel tempted to fire back or clear your name in every corner of social media. While there's a place for clarifying truth, be cautious not to engage in endless battles that sap your energy. Remember the bigger mission, healing souls and cultivating an environment where truth and freedom can thrive. Responding from love, not anger, both protects your peace and serves as a powerful witness to those still caught in the web of lies. You may also find yourself mentoring emerging leaders who see your integrity and courage as a blueprint. They too might be confronting unhealthy power structures in their realms, family units, workplaces, or other spiritual communities. By pouring into them, you replicate and expand a wave of liberation you've already initiated. Offer your insights freely, share stories of your own doubts and triumphs, and remind them that genuine leadership doesn't feast on followers' blind devotion, but rather cultivates an atmosphere where everyone can grow. In the midst of all this, keep your relationship with God at the core. Spiritual oppression often happens when leaders become disconnected from divine truth and overly reliant on their own ego. Consistent prayer, meditation, or study ensures you remain tethered to the ultimate source of wisdom and compassion. When uncertain situations arise, and they will, take time to pause, reflect, and listen. In that quiet space, you'll find the guidance you need to navigate complexities that mere intellect can unravel. Above all, recognize that your impact extends far beyond immediate circumstances. Some who witness these transformations will recount your actions to friends or loved ones, bound in different forms of deceit, be it another cult, a manipulative relationship, or a stifling belief system. Thus, your influence spreads in unseen ways, piercing corners of darkness you will never personally visit. That's the compelling, mysterious nature of kingdom work. It multiplies exponentially when surrendered to God's vast, uncontainable love. As these newly freed souls journey toward autonomy, your example of humility and empathy becomes an anchor in a sea of uncertainties. Each boundary they set, every independent thought they voice, and every fresh aspiration they pursue is a celebration of life reclaimed from spiritual captivity. And in supporting them, you further realize that your path, once obscured by doubt or fear, is now illuminated by a mission too vital to ignore. So take heart. You've stepped onto a stage larger than yourself, but you aren't acting alone. The history of liberation is threaded with stories of ordinary individuals who became extraordinary conduits of divine power. Your own narrative joins theirs, weaving a tapestry of hope that testifies to what happens when even one person dares to speak truth to oppression. As you continue, hold on to the conviction that every person delivered from the chains of deceit is a tangible glimpse of God's heart for humanity. That glimpse, magnified through your willingness to stand firm, can spark a revolution of freedom that echoes far beyond your immediate sphere. Ultimately, you are not just liberating individuals, you're transforming spiritual landscapes. Each heart set free adds momentum to a broader shift away from coercion and toward authentic connection with God and one another. While the work can be messy and unpredictable, it's also sacred. You stand as a living testament that a single courageous voice, aligned with divine purpose, can topple an entire framework of lies. Through your unwavering commitment to love, truth, and humility, you embody the very essence of the gospel's liberating power. The world may not offer parades for heroes who illuminate hidden corners of darkness, but heaven undoubtedly takes notice, and that is more than enough. Chapter 6. Your unshakable faith wields greater power than you know. The aftermath of your stand against manipulation and false leadership has revealed a quiet strength in you that's impossible to ignore. You might have initially operated on intuition or moral instinct, but the results point to something far more profound. Your faith is a force that dismantles structures of deceit and sets people free. You may not think of yourself as a warrior or a spiritual powerhouse, but the evidence is undeniable. When you chose to shine truth into a murky situation, illusions fell like dominoes. Consider the biblical principle. Faith can move mountains. It's a line people quote often, sometimes casually, but you've lived it. You didn't just move a metaphorical mountain, you caused an entire belief system, one built around a charismatic yet oppressive figure, to crumble. That mountain wasn't just towering over one or two people. It overshadowed a whole group who believed they needed the leader's approval to find purpose. By daring to raise questions, you unleashed an avalanche of revelation that can't be contained. Faith in this context isn't blind optimism. It's the conviction that truth stands taller than any fraud, that love triumphs over coercion, and that God's power far exceeds any authority a human being might claim. Your steadfast confidence in these truths became the match that ignited a transformation no one saw coming, least of all the so-called leader who thought they were unassailable. Even if you felt nervous or unsure at times, your core belief never wavered. It's that unshakable certainty that God stands with the oppressed and the deception collapses under the light of truth. Now, as you see people stepping away from that cult-like circle and searching for a new spiritual path, your faith is needed more than ever. Many are looking to you not just for guidance, but for reassurance that they won't be deceived again. This level of trust can feel overwhelming, especially when you're still processing your own experiences. Here, remember, you do not stand alone. The same God who amplified your voice before will sustain you now. Whenever doubt arises, recall how quickly a structure built on control disintegrated the moment truth was spoken. Power of this magnitude requires humility. You wield significant influence over hearts and minds, which is precisely why you must remain vigilant. Resist the urge to revel in admiration or see yourself as an untouchable authority. Acknowledge that you're the messenger, not the source. God, in his infinite wisdom, orchestrated these events to liberate souls, and you were the instrument chosen to initiate change. By preserving this perspective, you guard yourself from the pitfalls you exposed in that former leader, namely self-exaltation. Remember, too, that faith isn't static. It deepens with consistent practice. The road you now walk may present fresh trials. Perhaps new opposition emerges, or old adversaries refuse to let go of their bitterness. Stand firm. You've already seen how intimidation crumbles beneath God's truth. No matter how loud the threats or how cunning the tactics, they cannot eclipse what has been set in motion by a heart in alignment with the divine. This journey is also shaping you from within. As you guide others through the process of unlearning toxic doctrines, you may discover your own hidden biases or doubts. Don't shrink back. Invite faith to flood those corners of your soul. Allow God's light to penetrate your fears and uncertainties, transforming them into fresh revelations of grace. Each personal breakthrough amplifies your capacity to serve, creating a ripple effect that reaches far beyond your immediate circle. An essential aspect of nurturing your faith involves knowing when to pull back. With so many relying on your support, it's easy to deplete yourself or neglect your personal walk with God. Guard your times of solitude, prayer, and reflection. Even Jesus retreated from the crowds to reconnect with his Father in private. By maintaining this spiritual rhythm, you preserve the strength and clarity you need to guide others without compromising your own well-being. In a world overflowing with disinformation and self-serving agendas, your steadfast faith acts as a healing beacon. It's no coincidence that you encountered this particular crisis, nor is it by chance that your voice carried the force to topple an entire power structure. Such events rarely happen in isolation. They often mark the beginning of a higher calling. This experience may prepare you to confront other injustices, opening your eyes to patterns of deception in new arenas. Take each step with reverent boldness, knowing that your faith is both a shield and a beacon. Yet as your influence broadens, consider the responsibility of building something constructive in the wake of what has been destroyed. It's tempting to assume that once a toxic system collapses, the void naturally fills with positivity. In reality, empty spaces can draw new forms of manipulation unless there is intentional effort to cultivate truth and compassion. By engaging people in honest dialogue, encouraging them to question, even your own perspectives, and fostering an environment where accountability flourishes, you help ensure that the seeds of liberation grow into a resilient community of grace. Think of this phase as a spiritual rebuilding project, one that demands both your strategic thinking and your heartfelt empathy. You may also find opportunities to collaborate with others who share your passion for dismantling deceitful structures. These might be activists, community leaders, or fellow believers who have witnessed how false narratives enslave minds and spirits. By uniting your strengths, pooling resources, and sharing hard-earned wisdom, you can multiply your impact. Don't be surprised if new partnerships arise in the most unexpected places. Often, God orchestrates alliances between those who might never have crossed paths otherwise. In these connections, you'll see faith at work, not just on an individual level, but across communities, sparking renewal on a grander scale. Additionally, prepare for moments of introspection where you grapple with how to use your expanded influence. The path you tread is fraught with potential pitfalls, pride, complacency, or even the temptation to control outcomes for what you believe is the greater good. Here, your daily communion with God becomes your strongest safeguard. Continuously invite the Holy Spirit to search your motivations and realign them with divine principles of humility and love. Let each prayer session reset your perspective, reminding you that any power you possess flows from a source infinitely greater than yourself. Your story, now more public and potent, may also attract those who've experienced similar manipulations. They come looking for hope, validation, or even a safe harbor to process their pain. Embrace these opportunities to minister, but also recognize your limitations. You can't be everyone's savior. What you can do is point them toward the God who guided you, sharing testimonies of how he turned a situation marred by deception into a catalyst for true freedom. These honest conversations will open doors for deeper healing, forging bonds that may last a lifetime. Your impact stretches further than you might ever realize. Think of the countless individuals who've never met you, yet hear about your stand for truth through someone else's testimony. They too may discover the courage to break free from oppressive ideologies, whether in cults, toxic relationships, or unjust workplaces. This is the awe-inspiring chain reaction of faith in action. One soul illuminated by God's truth can ignite 1,000 others, each spark becoming a flame that pierces the darkness. Ultimately, the world needs more than fleeting victories. It needs enduring transformations. You embody that possibility. Your experiences serve as a living case study in how unwavering faith, rooted in humility and guided by love, can dismantle elaborate webs of control. And while you've won a significant battle, remember that faith is a lifelong pursuit, a continuous journey of surrendering your will to God's, learning from each new challenge, and evolving into the spiritual leader He's called you to be. Your influence is expanding far beyond what you see now. People you've never met in places you can't even name may eventually learn of your courage and find hope in it. That's the mystery and wonder of a chosen one's path. Your impact threads through countless narratives, bridging gaps you never even knew existed. When all is said and done, your unwavering faith remains the shining constant, the living testament to the transformative power of aligning with God's truth, and the world desperately needs more of it. Chapter 7. You're on the brink of a profound transformation. You can sense the momentum building, like a great wave cresting just offshore, ready to crash onto the beach of your life with powerful force. Everything you've experienced, the challenge of confronting a cultist regime, leading its members to liberation, and exposing an oppressive leader, has led to this pivotal juncture. You are no longer the person who walked into that fractured environment with only a vague sense of unease. Through trials and victories, you sharpened your discernment, fortified your courage, and grown into the divine calling that marks you as a chosen one. Transformation isn't merely about discarding old beliefs or habits. It's about fully inhabiting a new identity. For you, this entails understanding that your role as a liberator and truth teller far exceeds a single event. This season invites you to carry a supernatural authority in your words, actions, and even your silent presence. When you speak, people's hearts stir with possibility. When you offer compassion, broken souls awaken to hope. Your spiritual senses will intensify, enabling you to detect subtle currents in others' intentions and sense the invisible dynamics in any gathering. This heightened perception is not a burden, but a gift, aligning your eyes with God's greater vision for healing. In this transformative phase, God often accelerates the pace of your growth. You may find yourself absorbing new knowledge at a rapid rate. Divine revelations appear just when you need them. Mentors seem to arrive out of nowhere, and books or teachings practically leap into your path. Doors that were once barricaded are now swinging wide open, not because you forced them, but because your adherence to truth has created a powerful current of favor. Even the backlash from those who resent change cannot lock these doors. Instead, it serves as further confirmation that no human opposition can negate God's plans. A key element of this metamorphosis is honest self-reflection. When you step into new and expansive territories, lingering insecurities may try to resurface. Perhaps you'll wonder if you're genuinely equipped to handle the spiritual weight you now carry. But take courage in what you've already overcome. You dismantled a structure fortified by fear, manipulation, and blind loyalty, one of the most formidable strongholds imaginable. That victory is evident. You're not stumbling in darkness. You're guided by an unwavering light that won't be extinguished. As your mission broadens, expect shifts in your relationships. Some individuals, emboldened by your courage, will draw nearer, eager to learn or collaborate. Others may retreat, unsettled by the depth of your transformation or the profound authority you now embody. This reorganization of your social circle can be emotionally draining, but it's a natural part of the refining process. Your growth challenges others to confront their own fears and allegiances. Those who desire true freedom and authentic connection will gravitate toward you, while those who are more comfortable in the shadows will quietly slip away. During these changes, prayer and meditation become more than daily practices. They become the lifeblood of your ministry. In the turbulence of growth and the weight of increased responsibility, you'll need to ground yourself continually in divine wisdom. As your platform widens, every decision you make can either uplift or discourage those watching. While that can feel like a heavy mantle, remember that it's a sacred honor bestowed upon those who are willing to steward it with humility. By seeking God's heart in prayer, you position yourself to offer clarity, hope, and vision to those who are newly embracing freedom. Your divine assignment isn't merely about tearing down deceptive structures. It's also about unveiling a superior truth that sparks genuine liberty. Your leadership can model an ethos that nurtures and restores rather than rules through intimidation. This pivotal moment allows you to display what authentic, grace-driven influence looks like. Instead of playing to fear or sensationalism, your foundation rests on compassion, humility, and the abiding reality of God's love. Such a stance won't appeal to everyone. Some will misunderstand or reject it, but it will serve as a beacon of integrity for anyone seeking lasting transformation. Understandably, the magnitude of these changes can be both thrilling and intimidating. You might feel overwhelmed by the flurry of new connections, the added layers of accountability, and the barrage of urgent needs calling out to you. Even so, remember, you've never walked alone. From that first inkling of spiritual alarm that roused you to confront deception to the moment you realized the false leader's power had collapsed, the hand of God has guided you. Every chapter of your life, both triumphant and painful, plays into your role as a catalyst for freedom at exactly this hour. It's normal to feel a tremor of anxiety as you stand on the threshold of profound transformation, but the very God who helped you topple a regime built on tyranny and blind allegiance stands steadfast at your side. Each new season comes with a promise. You will not be led into uncharted territory without the means to conquer it. The synergy of your faith, your life experience, and the Holy Spirit's ever-present guidance forms a platform unshakable by any earthly force. The cult you dismantled will soon become a testimony of what happens when a chosen individual aligns with divine truth. Oppressive illusions crumble, hope resurfaces, and entire communities flow anew. In these final moments before you take your next bold step, Pause to appreciate what you've accomplished and all that lies ahead. You didn't script this storyline, yet you answered the call at the precise moment destiny demanded it. That's the mark of a true chosen one, being prepared at the crossroads where deception meets exposure, despair meets hope, and chains meet the force that breaks them. Now the horizon before you glows with unlimited possibility. Walk toward it with confidence, knowing your heart is tethered to God's unwavering love and that your footsteps will inspire others to find their own path to liberation. As you press forward, consider how this journey can be multiplied through the people you touch. Perhaps you'll mentor those newly freed, guiding them through their own healing and helping them rediscover their intrinsic worth. Or you may find yourself invited to speak on broader platforms, shining a light on systems of oppression hidden in plain sight. Your influence will expand in unexpected ways, yet the center of your strength will always be the same: your relationship with God, tempered by sincerity and passion. Those who benefit from your counsel and leadership may never fully grasp the depths of what you overcame, but they'll recognize the authenticity that radiates from a soul set free. Embrace this season of transformation wholeheartedly. Every new sight, every milestone, and every connection forged is a gift from the one who saw your potential long before you did. As you move into this next chapter, remain anchored in prayer and surrounded by those who truly celebrate your growth. Let gratitude color each step you take, and let hope illuminate even the most challenging days ahead. This is your moment to reveal to yourself and to the world the incomparable strength of a life grounded in divine truth. Whatever storms arise, stand firm, assured that you've been called and equipped for such a time as this. Your story is far from over. In many ways, it's just beginning. May each page be filled with the relentless love of God, the unyielding resilience of your spirit, and the breathtaking wonder of a future no longer bound by the shadows of the past.